Did you just say that YouTube doesn't want AI slop?
Yeah, he did.
Welcome, everybody, to the DevOps Roundup. Today, we have a very special guest, Chuck Talk. And if you may remember from like episode 1 or 2, Sean, we promised the people when we hit 500 subscribers, which we're dangerously close to getting to, we would start bringing on guests. And Chuck, you are our very first guest, but we chose you for a very specific reason. Over the last few weeks, we've been experimenting with anti-gravity and vibe coding, and we've been talking a lot about the pros and the cons of AI. And I kind of talked to you about it, and you went off with anti-gravity. And we figured what better person to be our inaugural guest than somebody who has been using anti-gravity, I would argue, almost religiously, and has built over a dozen apps. And so we just want to talk about your experience, your aspirations, your goals, your struggles, your successes, your challenges, everything in between. So welcome, Chuck, to the show.
Thanks, Chuck.
Appreciate it.
All right. So 15 apps? What's the number? How many have you built?
17.
17. The number goes up by the day.
One a day.
So I think we're at like what, 1 or 2 each, Alex?
I'm still at my Domino's pizza tracker and my invoicing app for Jira.
So I keep expanding on my scripts. So I don't know if I would call them an app, but I have them going through a lot of older Perl and Python scripts that I have and basically updating them. And it's currently running now as we're recording the podcast.
That's excellent. That is excellent. Yeah, I had it running, but it was reaching a massive amount of memory, so I had to shut it down for now. But one of the things that I love about it is it gives me ability to plan. Part of my structure and way of thinking coming from, I guess I've been in this business since 1983, 84 in technology. And I like to plan first when I'm doing things. So I design out my app and I tell it what I want. And I give it a very thorough design document for my prompt. And that is just amazing to me because the things that I've wanted to build for years, wow, there it is.
There it is. Yeah. That was kind of my reaction. I was sharing with Sean earlier, right? So I wanted to, since college, I had been trying to build a game of Tetris. And so I'm over here going into Claude naively. I'm just going to have it help me build the game of Tetris. 10 seconds later, I had a full functioning game of Tetris built.
That is awesome. It's good if you know what you want, if you take your time and think about it. One of the things I do is tell it to always keep an updated plan. So I have a plan file with my application as I'm implementing features or I'm trying something new. I have a plan so I can, whoop, that didn't work, back up, go try it this way. But that helps me keep them all straight, because you come back to the code and go, okay, what was I doing here? Now I've got the plan file. I know where I'm at. It's like, let's re-engage with my plan. I keep it updated every time I shut down and stop on a point. But the apps that I've got going out there it blows me away. It's so exactly what I need. I built a Forge app in a single night, within a few hours actually, but and it's useful. Whether it'll ever get sold, I don't know.
So let's talk about that. So what is the long-term game here? Because I know at the beginning when you first started with this, you're like, hey, I'm kind of getting tired of paying for some of these SaaS apps. So I'm just going to go build my own. So, and maybe I think you had mentioned something about some limitations that the paid versions were having. So why don't you walk us through some of the motivation and drivers here?
Well, some of the motivation and drivers for me is to have a useful tool that I control. And by that, I mean, I don't want it out in the cloud. I just got another letter yesterday from some company that had my health insurance information, and they're not even my insurer. They're just a data provider to my health insurance provider that basically was hacked over a year ago, knew about it from like a year ago, but sent me a letter on December 31st, and here it is, February 27th, and I just get the letter. and telling me, "Oh, I'll give you free monitoring for your credit and everything." I'm like,
that seems to be the default offer. Anytime that they screw up and lose your data, we'll give you a year free of. It's like, you need to start giving us something better.
Yeah, lifetime at this point.
I think it's bull. And, it's like giving your data away to these people if they're not going to be able to secure the data. And they can't tell you what they did, and they won't tell you what they did, and they want to obfuscate because they know they've done wrong. Then don't give it to them. We need to have that centralization back. And by that, I mean, my data is my data. And you want it, pay me.
Mm-hmm.
And so you circumvent this problem by simply just building your own homegrown solution at this point then.
Yes. And I built solutions. I decided that's a good idea, but not only am I building the solutions for me, but maybe I can build them for others. And I'm not going to track. I don't want to track. You want to buy it? Fine. It's not that expensive, but it's just a hammer. It's like, I'm not going to build a Swiss Army knife. I'm going to build the tool that does elegantly, efficiently, just what I want it to do, nothing more.
Mm-hmm.
Doesn't need to track you, doesn't need to follow you, doesn't need to do all that other stuff.
And let's sidebar there, because Sean, your experience with Antigravity has probably been a little bit different than the experience Chuck has been having, because in my conversations with both, so for the audience here, I've been having conversations in parallel, independent. And one day, or what was it, just 2 days ago, we're like, let's all meet up, right? Let's put the conversations together. But the key part is Sean's burning through tokens like it's nobody's business. And when I mentioned this to Chuck, Chuck's like, everything I've been doing is free. So why don't you guys both kind of talk about your experiences, and why is Sean heavy on the token side and Chuck, you're not?
Well, go ahead, Sean. You go. So my dogs are barking because
I'm watching your dogs too.
I'm happy that I'm over here.
I don't know if I'm purely burning through tokens or not. I did hit the a free limit pretty quickly, and then I realized I pay for Google Workspaces, and so I started using it through my Google Workspace account, and I haven't necessarily hit limits on the.
But then you told me you had started paying more, no? Like you were going a little bit above and beyond even those limits.
No, I thought I had. I did receive a mysterious $3,000 bill for OpenAI. And OpenAI did something kind of tricky. I was using just ChatGPT, and we have a corporate account for that, so not Antigravity. And it was sending me $100 bills every 40, 45 days or so since last summer. And I share this with the rest of the company. So a number of us are playing with it. At one time, I believe we hit like a 10 user maximum over that 6 month time frame, or however long it was. So what OpenAI did is it assumes that we need 10 seats at $30-something a piece, and they just charged us for 1 year, and not even sending us an invoice first. Just here's $3,000. You're good until 2027. Not what we wanted, not what we budgeted for, and not what we expected. So that was what you may be thinking of going over. So, and that was an odd. It was also an odd time to get the bill because I was flying that day, and I get this message that you just paid $3,000 to.
So maybe a clerical error then on our end. But Chuck, you've been having then a really pleasant experience with Antigravity.
Yeah, well, I'm also at a different tier probably because of my Google account, and I'm using Gemini. So one of the things I have run into on occasion is when I've used up too many tokens by just overplaying it, and they'll say, well, you'll refresh in a certain amount of hours, which is fine because then I can go take a break. It works out for me. But that's a minor inconvenience, to me. That's not major hassle. But being able to build out actual applications and get them delivered and work with them and see that the thing I thought of, the thing I knew I wanted to build, actually comes to life and is acceptable, is workable, and delivers the functionality I expect. That's amazing to me.
Yeah.
means
So then let's compare and contrast that experience, because that one definitely Sean's been having different experience, right? Because the more so just to kind of level set, Chuck, you've been building a lot of what I call micro applications, right? They're very niche. They do something or a couple of things, but they're not trying to end world hunger here. Versus Sean, he's been refining his application and just adding and adding and adding, and he ends up finding out. Well, I'll let him tell it.
Yeah. So to sum up my experience so far with Antigravity, it does a great job creating the initial application that you're asking it to do. When you start adding functionality to that application, it starts to forget what the application was there to do to begin with. And so you have to re-input things. Like you have to go back, find your original prompts and re-prompt them. Like you mentioned, you have a plan. I told Antigravity that everything you do needs to have a Jira ticket, and then all of your documentation put into Confluence. That's the two main tools that I use, and it does that well. And I can tell it, hey, go back and look at the Jira tickets that you've closed. I don't want you to remove any of that functionality when I'm asking you to add the additional features to the code. And even though I pointed to that, it sometimes ignores that as well. And I find key features now either work differently or they don't work at all. Because another thing I like to do with my Antigravity projects is I like to do test-driven development. And so I tell it to create the tests first based on what I wanted you to do, and then make sure you run the tests. And when I peeked behind the hood a couple times, some of the tests was just print OK. And and it's like, no, you actually need to test the functionality that you're about to write, and not just return a check mark or a green thumb or whatever, thumbs up.
I would say the more detailed you get with the prompt, and the more detailed you get with your design and your plan, and keeping that in. Because I'm very much project oriented. Right now my role is principal project management at my company. So I have to know what is in the plan, what have we accomplished, what do I want to keep, and what didn't work. And then I do the same thing with Antigravity. I treat it the same way. And I force it to keep that plan in mind. I have seen it break functionality. Yes, that happens. But I'm able to go back and say, wait a minute, right here, this must work this way. We've agreed. This is the plan.
I have to remind it all the time. Like just this morning, I had it updating a bunch of documentation in Confluence. And instead of updating, it replaced all the documentation with, just a brief executive summary. And I'm like, no, I wanted you to amend to all these pages, not remove and then just give me executive summary. So it was very good at reverting that, though. I basically just said, okay, you need to revert everything you just did. And it figured out what it just did and went back and reverted the pages and then amended what it had just created. But that was an odd choice for it to make. Even with the prompt used the word amend, and it replaced.
You might try append.
And
because amend implies a change, but append isn't.
Your guys' applications, and I've seen my personal application. And my experience right now is on the UX front, right? So these applications feel very techy, very engineering built, but when you pay for a SaaS product, it doesn't normally feel very techy, very engineering driven. So what are you guys' thoughts and perspective on when is mass adoption going to take over here?
I would say that the apps that I put out there so far are just really written for Linux. So they're mostly written for more techie. I've got an application that I've got that's coming for the Mac, and I'm going to put it out. I'm doing all the work, and I'm setting up the LLC and doing the Apple developer pay for it and get the certificates and do all that. So there's a whole process going behind that. I started to try to move that over to a Windows environment. Holy Yeah. So there's, I've got one that works there. I've, again, in the kind of the retain control space, everybody uses either the speed dial in their browser, or they may pay for a speed dial service. Why do that? I built one that lives local, and you can just go direct into where you want to get to without any trackers. So why not do that? I've done it. That one's going to come out too. And that one is truly cross-platform. So it will work across all three of the major OSs. But I think the UX really is more of the web-facing UX, and I've changed from my Linux side of doing all everything in GTK, Labo, Weta, doing all those kind of stuff, to where I'm now doing more of Flutter and Dart and React, and putting more modern cosmetic on it, if you will.
Yeah, I would say that these AI tools are capable of doing that. And looking at the things that we've created so far, yeah, they are techie because we're techies, and we're not necessarily really looking to productize the, no, I don't want to productize anything that I've created so far. It's for internal use only.
Right. But that's kind of the point still, right? Like, how many folks are, because we just saw on the news, Block laid off, what, 40%, 50% of their employees?
40%.
40%, right? In lieu of AI enhancements and stuff. So you got to imagine that they're building a lot of agents, maybe even some homegrown applications that are doing stuff. But these applications that are being built, right? Like, how am I expecting a non-technical person to use these enhanced apps that are now locally built when they're not very user-friendly? They're friendly to us because we kind of the authors of them. But what happens when you expect your spouse to use it?
I've got instructions in mind.
Yeah, but non-technical people don't read instructions either. So
that's true. But I do tend to tell them, there's a little icon if you click and says how to use.
But no, if you're laying off like 50% or 40% of your employees, you need to make sure that some of the ones that are left are your technical users, so they can use these things. Because you may have just let go of all the talent that knows how to use this automation or the AI, and now you're stuck.
It'll be the ones like us that are going to come out here and use Antigravity to compete directly against you and go, oops. So, I mean, to me, it's empowering for the individuals. It really is. And you have the opportunity to do something that you would have had to have a company and all kinds of stuff ages ago to go even start. Now it's a power for a startup engine, if you really want to say that. What I see it as, I think you can start your own business, and you don't have to build the greatest thing in the world to be successful.
Mm-hmm.
You just have to build something that's useful, and solves a problem, and that people will use.
And how do we go ahead, Sean?
As I say, if you look at all like the big unicorns, I don't think their products were the best. I think they were useful enough for the time, and a lot of them were the first out there, or the second because they stole the first.
Do you think we're going to have more unicorns or less unicorns now then?
I think it's going to be a smaller ask to start up than it has been. I have to have billions to start my company. Come on, really?
Yeah. I think it goes to like, do you want to fight a horse-sized duck or a duck-sized horse? Or 100 duck-sized horses. So you'll have a lot more unicorns. So the unicorns aren't going to be as large and shiny as they were. They're going to be, smaller, less attractive unicorns, but a lot more.
I think they'll be shiny in a certain way, and that way is that they'll be able to be nimble, versus the overly large, let's shift the Titanic. That doesn't work as well. I think there's a sweet spot of the small to medium companies that are really going to grow. And I see the large, bloated, heavily corporate as just being, hey, I need to get this document updated. Oh, it's going to have to go through 50 approvals to get there.
Yeah, I think that ship sailed. So you have your IBMs, which haven't been necessarily profitable in a while, and then the next step down is your Atlassians and companies like that. But yeah, it'll be very nimble 1 to 2 man shows, producing most of the things. And I think we'll get a glut of software. And we talked about this in an earlier episode. Once we have 1,000 agents that do basically the same thing, or 1,000 apps that we created, that basically is, which one do you choose? And is it just, are we going to have, decision paralysis at that point?
Well, if the agents are the only ones talking to each other, which one's going to win?
Yeah.
They're battling to do the same thing. Hey, no, that's mine. No, that's mine.
Yeah. Now, once the agents start reaching out to other agents, do you even know which agents your agent's talking to?
That's why you got to give them names, per my last LinkedIn post.
Yeah, comment on that is like, once we have so many agents, do we treat them like cattle, or do we keep treating them like pets?
That's a good question. I mean, my pets are my family, so that's
probably cattle then. Well, what happens when you have a series of agents that are like your therapist? Right?
Well, I hope not to have an agent, my therapist.
That's not what I'm looking AI to do. And but I bet you people are doing that with AI.
I'm pretty sure they are, because like my kid asked AI for what should I eat today. And so the next generation, you got to be thinking about the next generation. There was an episode of The Big Bang Theory where Raj did go on a full date with Siri. So making a girlfriend agent or a boyfriend agent is not out of the question.
Yeah, that's already happened.
Yeah.
There's at least 3 movies based on that too.
Her.
Her is one of them.
So very next question, very serious question. So deployability or deployment tactics. So Chuck, you've mentioned App Store. Chuck, you and I have mentioned SourceForge from before. How do we deal? So let's fast forward. We build the perfect app. Sean, we get all the wrinkles out. How do we get it out to the world?
You've got to announce it. You've got to do something. You've got to make people see it.
But like from an infrastructure perspective, like Chuck, are any of these, like, do you have to buy AWS infrastructures for anything that you're deploying? Like, how do you handle data management, data storage? Like, are we back to 1980s and 90s like open source software at this point?
Getting there.
I think it's Italian, definitely. Yeah.
I mean, for me, I'm just going to let the app stores handle the payments and all that kind of stuff. I'll do all my own marketing or announcements or get it out there, but I don't see a need to build out fancy infrastructure when there's places like GitHub and what do I need to do that for?
I think that's probably the lowest hanging fruit, is just putting it up on GitHub and making it public.
But then that means that the application is locally stored. Like you download the installer and you install it on your computer and it runs locally. It's not a SaaS.
Well, you can keep private repos out on GitHub and have public repos. So I have both.
But they wouldn't be running your application from GitHub.
No.
It's just where they would obtain it. And to Alex's point, they would be installing it on whatever it runs on.
Exactly. I don't have to have infrastructure for that. I don't need it.
So then do you foresee a future where maybe Team Android starts to pull ahead because Apple may start implementing restrictions on, hey, no vibe code, like vibe coded apps need not apply?
Don't know. I don't know. I if they do that kind of thing, it's kind of a bad idea.
Doesn't Apple already restrict where you can get your applications from?
So Apple's has to, every application through Apple needs to come to the App Store, right? But their verification process probably does not have a vibe coded check. Like on YouTube, when we upload a YouTube video, it says, did you use AI for this? Yay or nay? And depending on if you say yay or nay, it significantly alters your revenue opportunities, because YouTube doesn't want AI slop, if you will, right? So I would imagine that at some point, Apple and all the App Store makers are going to be putting like AI slop guards in place.
So Release Team, DevOps tool specialists. We provide professional services and software reselling around the leading software DevOps tools like Atlassian, GitLab, GitHub, JFrog, and others. To talk with us about DevOps, here's our contact information. Please call 887-0489 or via email at info@releaseteam.com.
Did you just say that YouTube doesn't want AI slop?
He did say that, and I immediately thought there's a lot of AI slop out there.
Yes, there is.
Yes, but it doesn't get monetized.
Oh.
Now that I did not know, but because I'm like, why are people putting
You would think it would be getting monetized because it's so much of it.
Yeah, you would think, but Google, this is a constant combat that Google has, right? So they're updating their algorithms to detect the AI slop and whatnot. It's supposed to get better, right? Right now, it's an honor code. It's a checkbox that you check.
Well, then that honor code is not being honored. I can tell you that because too much
Apple is not as forgiving as Google. So I would assume that there will be a measure when Apple's inundated with 1,000, like when it's 1,001 submissions of AI coded versus human coded apps.
But if the AI coded app works, what's the difference?
But how does Apple verify if it works? Like, do they? Because I've never submitted an app to the App Store.
Well, I don't know either. I'll find out.
You'll find out doing
it.
I can imagine a future where Apple's going to say, you know what, we're holding the bar here, and like this is going to be the place where you don't have this. Like, again, I'll just put AI slop in air quotes. And I envision a future because Android does let you basically load anything you want in developer mode.
Yeah.
Right. But we don't have a developer mode on the iOS side as easily.
Well, I'm not developing for the iOS yet. I haven't gone down that rabbit hole.
I'd be surprised if Apple isn't using AI to vet the apps.
The submissions?
Coming to the store. Yeah.
Now, what about from a security perspective, then, Chuck? Because you were saying that you're one of the reasons why you're motivated to build these apps is for your data privacy and stuff. But
right,
what's stopping other folks from like creating an app that is supposedly safe and secure, but is because it was vibe coded, you don't 100% understand every line of the code that's on there? What happens when you have vulnerabilities or leaks or?
Well, hopefully, if you're a smart person, you're checking your security for your app as you build it. If you're not, well, things happen. But there are, I tend to try to run scans and make sure that I'm doing what I can. Now, certain applications, I won't say which, on certain platforms, and I won't say which, are using outdated code to build their apps.
Mm-hmm.
That is a problem. When you see that, you know they need to update, but and you can't get on their platform unless you use their version.
Cool.
So there are just things you have to take into account when doing this.
Well, in the last couple of minutes, Chuck, as we close this episode out, final thoughts, opinions. You recommend everybody to go vibe code your next app today?
Well, I think if you know what you're doing, it's a good tool to use. It's a good tool to have in your tool belt. I mean,
what about like your local mom and pop shop, like a pizza parlor? What can they do? Because they probably know what they want, but they don't know what they want.
They would probably need to hire a software developer to mail on that.
That's exactly what I was thinking too.
So is that the future of software engineer? You become a localized software engineer for your community?
You can. I mean, one of the things that I've got in my back pocket that I still want to do at some point, and I still say I'll do it if I ever get around to it, is to try to build a corporation for public software, which is basically the same idea as corporation for public broadcasting. Make it available, democratize and educate. You know, we're losing so many good ideas because we're not educating people to the proper standards.
Mm-hmm.
Awesome. Well, in the interest of time, Chuck, thank you so much for being here. We'll see if we can rally up the CP. What was it? The CPS?
Yes, it's not Child Protective Services.
Oh.
It's the Corporation of Public Software.
Corporation of Public Software. Not that, the other CPS.
Maybe you should add the O in there for
probably.
Cops?
Yeah.
Maybe
no, now it becomes cops. Yeah.
I don't want to be cops. I think CFPS, Corporation for Public Software. That's
okay. Yeah. Add the F.
Cops. All right, folks. If you enjoyed this conversation, hit that subscribe button, drop a like. And Chuck, thank you so much for being our very first guest. And thank you to our 500 subscribers. And hopefully we get to the next 500 quickly because Sean wants us to hit 1,000 soon. Right, Sean?
That's right. Well, thank you, Chuck.
Thanks, guys. Appreciate it.
Bye, everyone.